The screech of tires cut through the afternoon air like a knife. Ella Benson's heart seized as she saw the small boy dash into the street, his laughter turning to confusion as the massive moving truck barreled toward him. Time slowed to a crawl. The driver's face was buried in his phone, completely oblivious. The child, no more than 6 years old with dark hair and wide eyes, stood frozen in the center of the road, a red ball rolling away from his small hands. Ella didn't think. Her nursing school textbooks slipped from her arms, scattering across the sidewalk as her legs propelled her forward. The truck was maybe 20 feet away. 15. Her lungs burned as she sprinted faster than she'd ever run in her life. 10 feet. The driver looked up, horror dawning on his face, but it was too late to stop. 5 feet. She slammed into the boy with her full weight, wrapping her arms around his small frame and twisting her body to shield him. They hit the pavement hard on the other side of the street, and Ella felt the rush of air as the truck roared past, missing them by inches. Then came the sickening crunch. The truck's side mirror caught her leg, spinning her like a rag doll. Pain exploded through her body as she tumbled across the asphalt, still clutching the child against her chest. The world tilted and blurred. She could hear shouting, running footsteps, the boy crying beneath her. "It's okay," she whispered, even as agony radiated from her ribs, her leg, everywhere. "You're okay, baby. You're safe." Strong hands pulled the child away from her. She tried to protest, to make sure he was truly unharmed, but darkness crept into the edges of her vision. A man's face appeared above her, sharp features twisted with something between fury and fear. He was speaking rapidly in Korean, barking orders. The last thing Ella saw before unconsciousness claimed her was the little boy's tear-streaked face peering over the man's shoulder, those dark eyes locked on hers. When awareness returned, it came in fragments. Softness beneath her, the scent of jasmine and something expensive, distant classical music. Pain, but duller now, wrapped in cotton. Ella's eyelids felt like lead weights, but she forced them open. This wasn't a hospital. The ceiling above her was ornate, decorated with intricate molding that probably cost more than her entire apartment. Silk curtains in deep burgundy framed massive windows. An IV line ran from her arm to a stand beside the bed, but the bed itself was enormous, covered in sheets that felt like liquid against her skin. "Where?" Her voice came out as a croak. Her mouth was dry as sand. "You're awake." The voice was deep, accented, controlled. Ella turned her head, wincing at the sharp protest from her neck, and found him sitting in a leather chair beside the bed. The man from the street. Up close, he was devastatingly handsome in a way that seemed almost dangerous. Mid-30s, with perfectly styled black hair, sharp cheekbones, and eyes that missed nothing. He wore a tailored black suit that probably cost more than her tuition. "The boy," Ella managed. "Is he?" "Ji-woo is fine. Not a scratch on him, thanks to you." The man stood, moving with the grace of a predator. "You, however, have 3 broken ribs, a severe concussion, and a fractured tibia. The doctors say you're lucky to be alive." Ella tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Fire lanced through her side, stealing her breath. The man was there instantly, one hand on her shoulder, surprisingly gentle as he eased her back down. "Don't move. Your bones need time to heal." "I need to get to work," Ella said, panic cutting through the pain. "I have a shift at the convenience store in 3 hours, and class tomorrow morning." "My phone, where's my?" "You're not going anywhere." His tone left no room for argument. "You can barely breathe without pain, Miss Benson. You certainly cannot work or attend classes. How do you know my name?" Suspicion crept into her voice, mixing with the fear. Nothing about this situation felt right. The opulence of the room, the private medical equipment, the way this man carried himself with absolute authority. "Your identification was in your bag, along with your nursing school enrollment papers and several past due bills." He pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat, his gaze intense. "I am Kang Min-jun. The child you saved is my son. You threw yourself in front of a moving truck for a stranger's child without hesitation. That is not a debt I take lightly. Have you ever made a split-second decision that changed everything? Drop a comment and tell us about it. And if you're already hooked on Ella's story, smash that like button and subscribe because this is just the beginning. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next." Ella stared at him, trying to process his words through the fog of pain and medication. "I don't understand. Why am I not in a hospital? Who are you really?" A slight smile touched Min-jun's lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're in my home because hospitals ask too many questions, and I value my privacy. As for who I am, let's simply say I'm a businessman with extensive interests in import and export. That tells me nothing. It tells you everything you need to know for now." Min-jun leaned back, studying her with an intensity that made Ella's skin prickle. "You will stay here until you've recovered. You'll have round-the-clock medical care, physical therapy, anything you need. I've already contacted your employers and your school to explain you'll be on medical leave. You can't just decide that for me." Ella's voice rose, then broke as pain stabbed through her ribs. She gasped, tears pricking her eyes. Minjun waited until her breathing steadied before continuing, his voice maddeningly calm. I can, and I have. You saved my son's life, Miss Benson. In my world, that creates an obligation. You are under my protection now, whether you like it or not. He stood, adjusting his cufflinks with precise movements. A nurse will be in shortly to check your vitals. If you need anything, press the button on the nightstand. Try to rest. He was halfway to the door when Ella called out. I can't afford this. Whatever this costs, the medical care, staying here, I can't pay for it. Minjun paused, glancing back over his shoulder. You already paid. With your courage and your pain. We're even, Miss Benson, though I suspect you got the worst end of the bargain. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving Ella alone with her racing thoughts and the unsettling feeling that she'd stumbled into something far more complicated than a simple good deed. The next few hours passed in a blur of medical checks. A kind-faced woman in scrubs who introduced herself as Dr. Park examined Ella thoroughly, adjusting her pain medication and explaining the extent of her injuries in accented English. 3 cracked ribs, not broken. The fracture in her leg was clean, but would require 6 weeks in a cast. The concussion was moderate, but should heal with rest. You're very fortunate, Dr. Park said, making notes on a tablet. A few inches to the left, and that truck would have killed you instantly. You must have a guardian angel. Or a death wish, Ella thought, but didn't say. She'd reacted on instinct. The same instinct that made her want to become a nurse in the first place. She couldn't stand by and watch someone get hurt, not when she could do something about it. When Dr. Park left, Ella finally allowed herself to take in her surroundings properly. The room was easily 3 times the size of her studio apartment. Original artwork hung on the walls, pieces that looked like they belonged in museums. Through the windows, she could see manicured gardens stretching into the distance, dotted with marble fountains and exotic plants. What kind of businessman lived like this? And why did he need such extreme privacy? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. The door cracked open, and a small face peered around the edge. Jiwoo. The boy clutched a stuffed tiger to his chest, his dark eyes huge and solemn as they fixed on Ella. Hi there, Ella said softly, managing a smile despite the pain. You must be Jiwoo. Are you okay, sweetheart? The boy nodded slowly, then stepped fully into the room. He approached the bed with careful, quiet steps, as if afraid he might break something. When he reached her side, he held out the stuffed tiger. For you, he said in heavily accented English. To make you better. He always makes me feel better when I'm scared. Ella's throat tightened. She took the tiger gently, noting how worn it was, clearly a beloved companion. Thank you, Jiwoo. That's very kind. But won't you miss him? Jiwoo shook his head. You were brave for me. Now Tiger can be brave for you. He hesitated, then added in a whisper. I'm sorry you got hurt because of me. Oh, honey, no. Ella reached out, ignoring the protest from her ribs, and touched his hand. This wasn't your fault. Not even a little bit. I'm just glad you're safe. That's all that matters. Tears welled in the boy's eyes. My daddy says you're a hero. He says heroes are special people who help others even when it's hard. Your daddy is very smart. Ella squeezed his hand gently. And you're very brave too. Running out to get your ball like that? That took courage, even if it was a little bit dangerous. Jiwoo smiled, a real smile this time that transformed his solemn little face. Will you stay? Daddy says you have to stay until you're all better. I hope you stay forever. Jiwoo. Minjun's voice came from the doorway, firm but not unkind. Miss Benson needs to rest. Come, it's time for your lessons. The boy's face fell, but he nodded obediently. He leaned close to Ella and whispered, I'll come visit you again tomorrow, okay? We can read books. I have lots of books. I'd like that very much, Ella whispered back. She watched as Jiwoo ran to his father, who placed a protective hand on the boy's shoulder and guided him out. But just before the door closed, Minjun looked back at her. Something flickered in his expression, too quick to identify, before his mask of control slid back into place. That night, Ella lay awake despite the pain medication making her drowsy. The pieces didn't fit together. Minjun's careful words, the extreme wealth, the need for privacy, the way everyone in this house moved with quiet efficiency and barely concealed tension. She'd grown up in Lagos before moving to the States at 18, working 3 jobs to put herself through school. She'd seen enough of the world to recognize danger when she was sleeping in its house. But she'd also seen the way Minjun looked at his son, the fierce protectiveness, the gentle hand on Jiwoo's shoulder, the way his entire demeanor softened around the boy. Whatever else Minjun might be, he was a devoted father. And that little boy had already carved out a space in her heart with his solemn eyes and sweet gesture with the stuffed tiger. Ella pressed the tiger to her chest, wincing at the pressure on her ribs. She was trapped here for now, too injured to leave even if Minjun would allow it. The smart thing would be to recover as quickly as possible and get out before she learned anything she shouldn't. But Ella had never been particularly good at doing the smart thing. That's how she'd ended up throwing herself in front of a truck in the first place. The days blurred together in a strange rhythm. Mornings began with Dr. Park's examinations, followed by breakfasts served on fine china by a silent housekeeper. Physical therapy sessions left Ella exhausted and aching, but she pushed through, determined to heal as quickly as possible. And every afternoon, like clockwork, Jiwoo would appear at her door with his arms full of books and that shy smile that made her heart squeeze. "Today I brought my favorite," Jiwoo announced on the fourth day, climbing carefully onto the edge of Ella's bed. He'd grown more comfortable with her, though he was still gentle, as if afraid she might shatter. "It's about a tiger who becomes friends with a rabbit." "Sounds perfect." Ella adjusted herself against the pillows, still moving slowly, but with less pain than before. The medication helped, but so did having something to look forward to besides staring at the ornate ceiling. Jiwoo settled in close to her side, opening the book with reverent care. His English reading was halting but earnest, and Ella helped him with the harder words, praising his effort. She'd learned he was being homeschooled, that his mother had died when he was born, and that he was lonely in this big house despite the small army of staff. "You sound like my Amma," Jiwoo said suddenly, looking up at her with those dark, serious eyes. "Daddy told me she used to sing to me before she died. Your voice is soft like that. Warm." Ella's chest tightened. "I'm sure she loved you very much." "Do you have a Amma, Miss Ella?" "I did. She passed away when I was younger. But I remember her voice too, and her smile. The people we love stay with us, even when they're gone. They live in our memories and in our hearts." Jiwoo considered this carefully, then nodded and returned to his book. But he scooted a little closer, and Ella draped her arm around his small shoulders, holding him gently. She didn't notice Minjun standing in the doorway until Jiwoo's lesson time was over. The boy hugged her carefully and scampered off, leaving Ella alone with his father. Minjun remained in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "You're good with him," he said finally. "He's a sweet kid. Smart too. You should be proud." "I am." Minjun stepped into the room, and Ella noticed he'd shed his suit jacket. In just his black shirt and slacks, he seemed more human, less like a marble statue. "He's asked me twice today if you're staying permanently. Apparently, you've made quite an impression." "I'm just reading him stories." "You're giving him something he hasn't had since his mother died. Warmth. Maternal affection." Minjun's jaw tightened. "I can provide for him, protect him, educate him. But I cannot be what you are to him." The vulnerability in his voice caught Ella off guard. She studied him carefully, this man who was still essentially a stranger, and chose her next words with care. "Can I ask you something?" "You can ask. I may not answer." "Who are you really, Minjun? And please don't give me that businessman line again. I've seen the guards at every entrance. The way people look at you like you're either a king or something to fear. The fact that you have a private doctor on staff and enough pull to make my employers and school just accept my absence without question." She paused. "I'm not stupid. So please don't treat me like I am." Minjun was silent for a long moment, his gaze locked on hers. Then he moved to the window, looking out over the gardens with his hands clasped behind his back. When he spoke, his voice was measured, careful. "My father built an empire through legitimate business and less legitimate means. When he died 5 years ago, I inherited both. I've been working to transition the family interests toward legal enterprises, but such things take time. And in the meantime, I have enemies who would use any weakness against me. Like your son." "Like my son," he agreed quietly. "That's why we live like this. Why I trust so few people. Why Jiwoo cannot attend regular school or play in public parks like other children." He turned to face her. "And why having you here, someone who saved him without knowing who he was or what I am, is both a blessing and a complication I didn't anticipate." Ella's pulse quickened. "What kind of complication?" "The kind where my son is growing attached to someone who will eventually leave. The kind where I find myself trusting someone I barely know. The kind where—" He stopped abruptly, his control slipping for just a second before he regained it. "You should rest. Dr. Park says your progress is good, but you need to be careful not to overdo it." He was deflecting, changing the subject, but Ella let him. She was starting to understand that Minjun revealed things in layers, carefully controlled doses of truth. Pushing would only make him retreat further. What would you do if you discovered the person who saved you was living in a world of danger? Share your thoughts in the comments below. "Minjun," she called as he reached the door. He paused, glancing back. "Thank you for telling me the truth. Or at least part of it." The corner of his mouth lifted in something that might have been a smile. "You're welcome. And Ella? Jiwoo isn't the only one who enjoys your company." Then he was gone, leaving Ella's heart racing and her mind spinning. She touched her fingers to her lips, surprised by the warmth spreading through her chest. This was dangerous. Getting attached to this place, to Jiwoo, to Minjun himself with his rare smiles and careful vulnerability. She was supposed to heal and leave. That was the plan. Except the plan was getting more complicated by the day. 2 weeks into her stay, Ella was well enough to move around the mansion with crutches. Dr. Park had been pleased with her progress, noting that her ribs were healing nicely and the concussion symptoms had resolved. The leg would take longer, but Ella was determined to build back her strength. She discovered the mansion was even larger than she'd imagined. 3 floors, countless rooms, a library that made her gasp with its floor-to-ceiling shelves, and a garden that seemed to stretch forever. And everywhere, signs of the careful security Min Jun had mentioned. Cameras in corners, guards stationed at entrances, a state-of-the-art security system that would rival a bank's. It should have terrified her. Instead, it made her sad. What kind of life was this for a 6-year-old boy? What kind of life was this for anyone? She found Jiwoo in the garden one afternoon, kneeling beside a small plot of dirt with a tiny watering can. He looked up when she approached, his face lighting up. "Miss Ella, look, I'm growing flowers. The gardener said these are called cosmos, and they'll be pink and purple when they bloom." Ella lowered herself carefully onto a nearby bench, propping her crutches beside her. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. Your Amma would be proud that you're taking care of living things." Jiwoo's smile dimmed slightly. Daddy says she liked flowers. Her favorite was cherry blossoms, but those only bloom in spring. He carefully watered his seedlings, his small hands steady. "Do you like flowers, Miss Ella?" "I love them. Back in Nigeria, my mother had a garden full of hibiscus and roses. She said gardens were proof that beautiful things could grow even in difficult soil." "Nigeria is far away, right? Do you miss it?" "Sometimes. I miss the food, the music, the way people would gather and talk for hours. But America is my home now too. I've built a life here." Jiwoo set down his watering can and came to sit beside her on the bench, his legs swinging since they didn't reach the ground. "Will you go back to your home when you're better? Your other home, I mean. Not Nigeria." The question pierced through Ella's defenses. She'd been trying not to think about leaving, about returning to her cramped studio apartment and exhausting schedule. The thought of not seeing Jiwoo smile every day, of not having these quiet moments, made her chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with her healing ribs. "I suppose I will," she said softly. "I have school to finish, a career to build. I can't stay here forever, sweetheart." "Why not?" Jiwoo's voice was small. "Don't you like it here? Don't you like us?" "Oh, Jiwoo." Ella pulled him close, careful of her injuries. "I like it here very much. And I like you and your daddy more than I probably should. But this isn't my world. I don't belong in mansions and private gardens. I belong in nursing school classrooms and hospital wards." "But you belong with us too," Jiwoo insisted, his voice muffled against her shoulder. "You fit. Daddy smiles more when you're around. He doesn't smile much usually. And I feel happy, like maybe it's okay that I don't have an Amma because I have you." Ella's eyes burned with tears. She blinked them back, pressing a kiss to the top of Jiwoo's head. "You are the sweetest boy I've ever known. And I promise, even when I leave, I won't disappear from your life completely. We'll figure something out, okay? Promise. Promise." They sat together in the afternoon sun, Ella's heart breaking a little more with each moment. She was in too deep. She knew it. And she had no idea how to protect herself from the inevitable pain that would come when she had to walk away. That evening, unable to sleep, Ella made her way to the library she'd discovered earlier. The mansion was quiet. Most of the staff retired for the night. She'd just settled into a leather chair with a novel when footsteps echoed in the hallway. Min Jun appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. He stopped when he saw her, surprise flickering across his features. "I thought you'd be asleep," he said. "Couldn't. Too much on my mind." Ella closed her book. "I'm not disturbing you, am I?" "No. I often come here at night when I can't quiet my thoughts." He moved to a cabinet against the wall, pulling out a crystal decanter and 2 glasses. "Whiskey. It's Korean, very smooth." "Why not?" Ella accepted the glass he offered, taking a careful sip. The liquid burned pleasantly down her throat, warming her from the inside. "Jiwoo and I had a conversation today. About me leaving eventually." Min Jun settled into the chair across from her, his expression carefully neutral. And it's going to break his heart. Which means I need to start putting distance between us now, before he gets more attached. Is that what you want?" Min Jun's gaze was intense over the rim of his glass. "What I want doesn't matter. It's what's right. You don't believe that." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "If you believed that, you wouldn't have thrown yourself in front of a truck for a child you'd never met. You follow your heart, Ella Benson. It's one of the things I've come to admire about you." The use of her first name sent a shiver through her. "You don't know me well enough to admire anything about me. Don't I?" His voice dropped lower, intimate. "I know you work 3 jobs while attending nursing school. I know you send money back to your family in Nigeria every month, even though it means you barely have enough for yourself. I know you read to my son with patience and kindness, that you make him laugh in a way I haven't heard since he was very small. I know you're terrified of staying, but equally terrified of leaving." He paused. "And I know that when you look at me, you see something other than what most people see. You see past the danger to the man underneath." Ella's breath caught. "Min Jun, I can't. This, whatever this is, it's not possible. You said it yourself. I'm a complication. And I don't belong in your world. What if I want you to belong? The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. What if I told you that in the 2 weeks you've been here, you've brought more light into this house than I thought possible? That my son smiles again, really smiles, and I find myself looking forward to the moments when I might see you. You're grieving, Ella said, her voice shaking. You lost your wife, Jiwoo lost his mother. I'm just a substitute, someone to fill that void temporarily. Minjun set down his glass and stood, crossing to where she sat. He knelt beside her chair, his eyes level with hers, and she could see the raw honesty in them. My marriage was arranged. Respectful, cordial, but not a love match. Jiwoo's mother was a good woman, and I mourned her loss for what it meant to our son. But I have never felt what I feel when I'm near you. This pull, this need to know what you're thinking, to hear your laugh, to watch you with my son, and imagine what it would be like if you stayed. His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing across her skin with devastating gentleness. Tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me I'm imagining this connection, and I'll step back. I'll keep my distance until you're healed and ready to leave. Ella closed her eyes, leaning into his touch despite every warning bell in her head. I feel it. God help me, I feel it. But feeling something and acting on it are two different things. You live in a world of danger, Minjun. You said so yourself. What happens when your enemies learn about me? When they see me as a weakness to exploit? I protect what's mine. His voice was fierce. And if you gave me the chance, if you stayed, you would be mine to protect. The possessiveness in his tone should have frightened her. Instead, it sent heat flooding through her veins. She opened her eyes and found him watching her with an intensity that stole her breath. This is insane, she whispered. Completely. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. But insanity seems to be a theme when it comes to you and my family. You threw yourself in front of a truck. Surely staying in a mansion with a man who's falling for you can't be more dangerous than that. You don't fall. You're too controlled. I was. Until you. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips. Tell me to stop. Tell me this isn't what you want. Ella's heart hammered against her ribs. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. She was recovering from serious injuries. He was involved in illegal activities. Their worlds couldn't be more different. There were 1,000 reasons to push him away. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw the same loneliness she'd carried for years. The same desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, someone could understand. Could see past the armor to the vulnerable person underneath. I can't tell you that, she admitted. Because it would be a lie. Minjun's smile widened a fraction of a second before he kissed her. The touch of his lips against hers was gentle at first, questioning. But when Ella responded, threading her fingers into his hair and pulling him closer, the kiss deepened. It was heat and promise, desire, and the beginning of something that terrified them both. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minjun rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he whispered. Not just until you heal. Stay with us. With me. Let me show you what your life could be like. I don't know if I can be what you need. What Jiwoo needs. You already are. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. But I won't pressure you. Take your time. Think about it. Just know that the offer stands, for as long as you need. Could you risk everything for a chance at belonging? Drop a comment and let us know. And if you're loving Ella's journey, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. The next few days were different. Minjun didn't push, but his presence was more constant. He joined her and Jiwoo for story time, sitting in the corner of her room with a small smile as she read. He ate breakfast with them in the morning, asking about her physical therapy sessions and Jiwoo's lessons. And in the evenings, after Jiwoo was in bed, he would find her in the library or the garden, and they would talk. Ella learned about his childhood, raised to inherit an empire he never wanted. About his struggle to honor his father's legacy while trying to build something cleaner for his son. About the loneliness of living behind walls, never knowing who to trust. She shared her own stories. Growing up in Lagos, losing her parents to a car accident when she was 17, working her way through immigration and school with nothing but determination. The dreams she'd held on to through exhaustion and poverty. The fierce need to help people that drove her toward nursing. You're already a healer, Minjun said one night, his hand finding hers in the darkness of the garden. You healed something in Jiwoo the moment you saved him. And you're healing something in me I didn't know was broken. What if I'm not strong enough for this world? You faced down a moving truck without hesitation. You're stronger than you know. He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. But I understand your fear. My world is dangerous. And I would understand if you chose to walk away from it, from us. Ella turned to face him fully, her crutches leaning against the bench beside her. The problem is I don't want to walk away. That's what scares me most. I'm falling for you, for Jiwoo, for this life. And I don't know if I'm being brave or just foolish. Perhaps both. Minjun's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. The best things in life often require a measure of both. Before Ella could respond, a phone buzzed urgently. Minjun pulled out his cell, and his entire demeanor changed. The softness vanished, replaced by cold calculation. He read the message, his jaw tightening. What is it? Ella asked, alarm creeping up her spine. A problem. I need to handle this. He stood abruptly, already typing a response. Go inside. Lock your door. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. Minjun, you're scaring me. He looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw fear in his eyes. Not for himself, but for her. For Jiwoo. A rival found out about you. About Jiwoo's accident and your presence here. He's threatening to use you as leverage against me. Minjun's voice was hard as steel. I won't let that happen. But I need you to trust me and do exactly as I say. Please. Ella's blood ran cold. This was it. The reality of his world crashing into the bubble they'd built. She nodded, grabbing her crutches and standing. What about Jiwoo? He's with his bodyguard in the safe room. He'll be fine. Minjun gripped her shoulders gently. I promise you, Ella, nothing will happen to you. I'll die before I let anyone hurt you. That's not reassuring. It's the truth. He kissed her hard and fast, then pushed her toward the house. Go. Now. Ella went, her heart pounding, crutches tapping frantically against the stone path. She could hear Minjun behind her, barking orders in Korean into his phone. Guards appeared from the shadows, armed and grim-faced, taking positions throughout the estate. She made it to her room and locked the door as instructed, then sank onto the bed, trembling. This was real. The danger Minjun had warned about, the enemies he'd mentioned, they weren't abstract concepts anymore. They were immediate and terrifying. Hours crawled by. Ella couldn't sleep. She clutched the stuffed tiger Jiwoo had given her, straining to hear anything beyond her door. There were footsteps at times, urgent voices, but nothing that gave her any clue what was happening. Around 3 in the morning, she heard shouting. Gunfire. Ella's scream caught in her throat as she dove off the bed, dragging herself underneath it despite the pain in her leg. More shots rang out, closer now. Glass shattered somewhere in the house. Then silence. Terrible, complete silence. The door to her room burst open. Ella bit back another scream, pressing herself against the wall beneath the bed. Ella. Minjun's voice, rough and urgent. Ella, where are you? Here. Under the bed. She crawled out, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip the bed frame to pull herself up. Minjun was there instantly, hauling her into his arms. She clung to him, feeling the rapid pound of his heart against her cheek. He was disheveled, his shirt torn, and there was blood on his knuckles, but he was alive. Whole. Are you hurt? She demanded, pulling back to check him over. Not my blood. His hands framed her face, thumbs stroking her cheeks. Are you okay? Did anyone get to you? No. I stayed here like you said. Ella's voice broke. Minjun, what happened? The gunfire, I thought. It's over. The threat has been neutralized. His voice was cold when he said it, and Ella understood what that meant. People had died tonight. Because of her. Because Minjun had protected what was his. She should have been horrified. Maybe she was, underneath the adrenaline and fear. But mostly she was grateful. Grateful he was alive. Grateful she was alive. Grateful that somewhere in this mansion, Jiwoo was safe. I need to see Jiwoo, she said. Please. I need to know he's okay. Minjun nodded and helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as they made their way through the mansion. She tried not to look at the broken windows, the bullet holes in the walls, the evidence of violence that had invaded this space. Guards moved through the halls, cleaning, repairing, erasing the night's events with practiced efficiency. The safe room was in the basement, behind a door that looked like part of the wall. Minjun entered a code, and it swung open to reveal a comfortable space with beds, supplies, and Jiwoo curled up asleep in the arms of a muscular man who could only be his bodyguard. Mr. Kong, the man said quietly in English, careful not to wake the boy. All clear, Dae-young. Thank you for keeping him safe. Dae-young nodded and carefully transferred Jiwoo to Ella's waiting arms. The boy stirred, his eyes fluttering open. When he saw Ella, his face crumpled and tears spilled down his cheeks. I was so scared, he whispered. I heard the loud noises and Dae-young said we had to hide, and I thought maybe the bad men would hurt you and Daddy. Shoo, sweetheart. We're okay. Everyone's okay. Ella held him close, rocking slightly despite the protest from her healing ribs. You were so brave. I'm so proud of you. Jiwoo clung to her, his small body shaking. Minjun placed a hand on his son's back, and the three of them stood there in the safe room, a family forged in crisis, holding on to each other like lifelines. Later, after Jiwoo had finally fallen back asleep in Ella's bed, refusing to let go of her hand, Minjun and Ella stood in the hallway outside her room. I'm moving you both to a secure location tomorrow, Minjun said quietly. Somewhere Chun and his associates will never find you. It's not safe here anymore, not until I've eliminated every threat. Chun, Ella repeated. Is that who attacked us? Yes. He's been a rival for years. always looking for weakness to exploit. Tonight he made his move, and he failed. But he won't stop. Not until one of us is dead. Minjun's expression was grim. I'm sorry, Ella. I brought this danger to your door. If you want to leave, I'll arrange for your protection elsewhere. Somewhere far from me and this life. Ella looked through the crack in the door at Ji-woo, sleeping peacefully now, his hand still reaching toward where she'd been sitting. She thought about the past few weeks, the joy she'd found in this strange new life, the way her heart had opened to this man and his son. She thought about the gunfire and the fear, the very real danger that came with loving them. And she thought about that moment in the street, when she'd seen Ji-woo in danger and hadn't hesitated. When her body had moved before her brain could talk her out of it. Because some things were worth the risk. Some people were worth fighting for. I'm not leaving, she said firmly. Not you, not Ji-woo. If you're moving us somewhere safe, then we go together. All three of us. Minjun stared at her, something raw and vulnerable crossing his face. You could die, Ella. Being with me, being part of this family, it puts a target on your back. I could have died in that street. I could have died tonight. Life doesn't come with guarantees, Minjun. But I know one thing for certain. I'd rather face danger with you than live safely without you. She reached up, cupping his face. I love him, and I'm falling in love with you. So unless you're telling me you don't want me here, I'm staying. Minjun crushed her against him, the control he always maintained finally shattering. I love you, he said fiercely against her hair. I've been falling for you since the moment I saw you lying in that street, broken and bleeding because you saved my son. My brave, impossible woman. They stood there, holding each other in the hallway as dawn light began to filter through the windows. The mansion staff moved around them, restoring order, but Minjun and Ella existed in their own world for those few minutes. A world where love was enough. Where they could build something beautiful despite the darkness. I need to ask you something, Minjun said finally, pulling back to look at her. And I need you to think carefully before you answer. What is it? Marry me. The words hung in the air between them. Not someday, not when things are safer. Now, be my wife, Ji-woo's mother, part of this family legally and permanently. It will offer you some protection in my world, show my enemies that you're untouchable. But more than that, I want you bound to me. I want to wake up every morning knowing you're mine, and I'm yours. Ella's breath caught. Minjun, we've known each other for 3 weeks. I know, it's fast. It's probably insane. But I've never been more certain of anything in my life. His hands tightened on her waist. If you need time, I'll wait. But I want you to know what I want, where my heart is. You and Ji-woo, you're my family now. And I protect my family with everything I have. Ella thought about her old life. The tiny apartment, the exhausting schedule, the loneliness that had been her constant companion. She thought about her dreams of becoming a nurse, of helping people, of building something meaningful. And then she thought about Ji-woo's smile when she read to him. The way Minjun looked at her like she was precious, irreplaceable. The sense of belonging she'd found in this strange, dangerous household. She could still pursue nursing, still help people. But she could do it as part of a family, with support and love surrounding her. Yes, she heard herself say. Yes, I'll marry you. Minjun's smile was blinding. He lifted her off her feet, spinning her carefully despite her injuries, and kissed her with a passion that made her toes curl. When he set her down, they were both breathless and grinning like fools. We'll do it today, Minjun said. I have a judge who owes me a favor. We'll make it official before I move you to the safe house. Today, Ella laughed, dizzy with the speed of it all. I don't have a dress, or flowers, or anything. You don't need any of that. You just need to say yes in front of witnesses. Everything else is just decoration. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips again. Though if you want a dress and flowers and a proper ceremony later, when things are calmer, I'll give you whatever you desire. I just want you. And Ji-woo. That's all I need. They told Ji-woo that morning over breakfast. The boy stared at them, processing the information with his solemn, serious expression. Does this mean Miss Ella will be my Amma? He asked finally, his voice small and hopeful. If you want me to be, Ella said gently. I know I can never replace your birth mother, and I would never try. But I love you very much, sweetheart, and I want to be your family. Ji-woo launched himself at her, nearly knocking over his juice in his enthusiasm. I want that more than anything. Can I call you Amma now? Please. Ella's eyes filled with tears as she held him. Yes, baby. You can call me Amma. Minjun watched them, his expression soft in a way she'd never seen before. This dangerous man, this mafia boss who commanded fear and respect, looked at his son and his soon-to-be wife with pure, unguarded love. The ceremony that afternoon was simple but meaningful. The judge arrived at the mansion, along with a few of Minjun's most trusted associates as witnesses. Ella wore a simple white dress that one of the staff had somehow procured in her size. Minjun wore a black suit, looking devastating and impossibly handsome. Ji-woo stood between them, holding both their hands, beaming with joy. Do you, Kong Minjun, Take Ella Benson to be your lawfully wedded wife? The judge asked. I do. Minjun's voice was steady, his eyes never leaving Ella's face. And do you, Ella Benson, take Kong Minjun to be your lawfully wedded husband? Ella took a breath, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The sacrifice, the danger, the fear, and the love that had grown despite it all. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Minjun pulled her close, kissing her with a tenderness that made her heart ache. Jiwoo cheered, and the small gathering of witnesses applauded. When they broke apart, Minjun slipped a ring onto her finger, a simple platinum band with a diamond that probably cost more than her old apartment building. Welcome to the family, Mrs. Kong, he murmured against her lips. I can't believe I just married a man I've known for 3 weeks. Ella whispered back, laughing and crying at the same time. Best decision you've ever made? After jumping in front of that truck? Definitely. They moved to the safe house that evening, a secluded estate in the mountains, surrounded by forest and protected by state-of-the-art security. It was smaller than the mansion, but no less luxurious, with huge windows overlooking pristine wilderness. The first few weeks were an adjustment. Ella continued her physical therapy, her body growing stronger each day. She enrolled in online nursing courses, determined to finish her degree, even in hiding. Jiwoo thrived with both parents present, his shy smiles becoming more frequent, his laughter filling the house. And Minjun worked tirelessly to eliminate the threat Chen posed, coordinating with his associates, planning, strategizing. Ella could see the weight of it on him, the responsibility of keeping them safe. But in the quiet moments, when Jiwoo was asleep and they were alone, Minjun was just her husband. The man who held her through nightmares about the truck, who listened to her talk about her classes, who made love to her with a tenderness that stole her breath. I never thought I could have this, Minjun confessed one night as they lay tangled together in bed. A real marriage. Love. The kind of family I always wanted for Jiwoo. You have it now, Ella said, tracing patterns on his chest. We both do. 6 weeks after the attack, Minjun came home with news. Chun was dead, eliminated by a coordinated strike from Minjun's organization and several other groups who'd grown tired of his aggression. The threat was over. We can go home, Minjun said, pulling Ella into his arms. Back to the mansion. Resume normal life, or as normal as it gets for us. What about other enemies? Won't there always be someone? Probably, but I've made a decision. Minjun cupped her face, his expression serious. I'm accelerating my transition out of the illegal side of the business. It'll take time, maybe a year or 2, but I'm done living like this. I want Jiwoo to grow up without fear. I want you to be able to leave the house without an armed escort. I want us to be a real family, not just a fortress under siege. Ella kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into the gesture. That's all I want to. They returned to the mansion, which had been fully repaired and upgraded with even better security. Ella threw herself into finishing her nursing degree, studying late into the night, while Minjun worked on legitimizing his business interests. Jiwoo started attending a private school with children of other wealthy families, making friends for the first time in his life. Slowly, carefully, they built a life together. Ella graduated from nursing school at the top of her class, with Minjun and Jiwoo cheering loudly in the audience. She took a position at a community clinic, using her skills to help people who couldn't afford expensive medical care. Minjun funded the clinic anonymously, ensuring it had the resources to serve the neighborhood. 6 months after their wedding, Ella discovered she was pregnant. She told Minjun and Jiwoo together over dinner, watching their faces light up with identical expressions of joy. A baby sister? Jiwoo asked, bouncing in his seat. Or a baby brother? We won't know for a few more months, Ella laughed. But either way, you're going to be a big brother. Jiwoo threw himself at her, hugging her carefully. I'll be the best big brother ever. I'll teach them everything, and protect them, and read them stories like you read to me. Minjun was quieter, but when their eyes met across the table, Ella saw tears in his. That night, he held her close, his hand splayed across her still flat stomach. You've given me everything, he whispered. A real family, a reason to be better, hope for the future. We gave each other everything, Ella corrected. I was lost before I met you and Jiwoo. Working myself to exhaustion, lonely, just surviving instead of living. You showed me what it means to be part of something bigger than myself. The months passed in a blur of joy and anticipation. Jiwoo was thrilled to help prepare the nursery, offering opinions on colors and furniture with the seriousness of a UN negotiator. Minjun completed the final transitions of his business, cutting ties with the last of his illegal operations and emerging as a legitimate businessman with interests in technology and real estate. And Ella bloomed, both with pregnancy and with the life she'd built. She'd never imagined she could be this happy, this settled, this loved. Their daughter was born on a spring morning when the cherry blossoms Minjun had planted for his first wife were in full bloom. They named her Sarah, a name that meant princess in Hebrew, because she was treated like royalty from the moment she entered the world. Jiwoo was obsessed with his baby sister, constantly wanting to hold her, sing to her, show her his toys even though she was too young to appreciate them. Minjun was a devoted father all over again, getting up for midnight feedings and changing diapers with the same efficient competence he'd once applied to running a criminal empire. And Ella watched her family, this impossible family she'd gained by throwing herself in front of a truck, and felt her heart overflow with gratitude. 2 years after that fateful day in the street, they held a proper wedding ceremony in the mansion gardens. Jiwoo, now 8, walked Ella down the aisle while Sarah, toddling and adorable in a flower girl dress, scattered petals everywhere except where they were supposed to go. Friends and family gathered to celebrate, including several of Ella's relatives who'd flown in from Nigeria, tearful and proud to see how far she'd come. Minjun waited at the altar, looking at her with the same intensity he had that first day she'd woken up in his house. When she reached him, he took her hands and spoke his vows in a voice that carried across the garden. You saved my son's life, and in doing so, you saved mine. You brought light into our darkness, love into our fortress, joy into our carefully controlled world. You are my heart, my home, my everything. I promise to love you, protect you, and choose you every day for the rest of my life. Ella's vows were simpler. I jumped in front of a truck for a child I didn't know, and woke up with everything I'd ever wanted. You, Jiwoo, Sarah, this beautiful life we've built together. You are my family, my love, my home. And I would make the same choice 1,000 times over, because it led me to you. What would you risk for a chance at true love and belonging? Share your story in the comments below. And if Ella's journey touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories like this one. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Drop a comment telling us what you loved most about this story, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. Until next time, remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open your heart to the impossible. They kissed as husband and wife for the second time, surrounded by the people they loved, in the gardens of the home where their story had begun. Jiwoo and Sarah cheered, and somewhere in the distance, cherry blossoms drifted on the spring breeze like blessings from the past, celebrating the future they'd built together. From that moment in the street when Ella had made a split-second decision to save a stranger's child, to this moment of perfect joy and completion, everything had led them here. To a family forged in sacrifice, strengthened by danger, and made unbreakable by love. And as Minjun held his wife and watched their children playing in the garden, he knew that he would spend the rest of his life being worthy of the incredible gift Ella had given him. Not just his son's life, but his own. The chance to love and be loved. The opportunity to be more than what his past had dictated. Ella had saved them all, and in return, they had given her everything she'd ever dreamed of, and so much more.